The barn was where they put girls no one planned to miss. Emily Carter learned that before the rain had finished washing the last of the rejection ceremony from her skin. By midnight, the main house of Mason Pack glowed with warm yellow windows, music, and the satisfied laughter of people who had just watched a bond break without bleeding themselves. Emily stood outside in the mud with her arms wrapped around her soft, curvy body, her pale dress soaked at the hem, her brown hair clinging to her cheeks. She did not knock on the door again. She had already heard the lock turn. Derek Mason had rejected her before the whole pack, with his shoulders straight and his voice calm, as if cruelty became respectable when spoken without shaking. "Emily Carter is not fit to stand beside me," he had said. Then Vanessa Moore had stepped forward in silver silk, smiling with the gentle pity pretty women used when they wanted witnesses to admire their mercy. No one asked where Emily would sleep. No one asked whether she had eaten. At the edge of the porch, Derek's beta had pointed toward the barn. "You can stay there until morning." Vanessa had laughed softly. "Let her sleep with the animals. That is where rejected girls belong." Emily had looked at Derek then. Not pleading. Not anymore. Only checking whether the man who had once promised to protect her would at least look ashamed. He did not. So she turned away before her face could give them anything else to enjoy. The barn smelled of wet straw, old wood, and horses sleeping uneasily through the storm. Emily found a corner behind the empty grain barrels and pulled a torn blanket around herself. Her hands were cold. Her feet ached. Mud had dried along her sleeves in dark, humiliating marks. She was 22 years old and suddenly belonged to no one. That should have terrified her. Instead, all she felt was tired. Tired of proving gentleness was not weakness. Tired of hearing people call her sweet when they meant useless. Tired of being the soft girl everyone believed could be moved, replaced, sent away, and still apologize for taking up space. She curled on her side and pressed one hand beneath her cheek. The straw scratched her skin. Rain hammered the roof in uneven waves. Somewhere in the distance, the pack house cheered. Emily closed her eyes. By morning, she told herself, she would leave. No goodbye, no explanation, no last look at Derek Mason's face. Just the road, the rain, and whatever small piece of herself had survived being unwanted. She was almost asleep when the horses suddenly went silent. Not restless, silent. The kind of silence animals made when something older than fear entered the room. Emily opened her eyes. At the barn door, through the broken seam of moonlight and rain, stood a massive white she-wolf with silver eyes and a swollen pregnant belly. Royal scent filled the air like winter and command. Emily stopped breathing. The wolf stepped inside, limping once, then crossed the straw straight toward her. Emily should have screamed. She should have run. Instead, she stayed still as the royal wolf lowered herself beside the rejected girl in the mud, pressed her warm body against Emily's trembling back, and growled softly at the door as if warning the whole world not to touch what it had thrown away. Several miles north of Mason Pack, Blackwood Palace woke to the sound of a door being torn from its hinges. Not a human door. Not one of the council chambers where men argued themselves important beneath silver banners. The sound came from the royal kennel, deep beneath the western wing, where no ordinary wolf had ever been allowed to sleep. Alpha King Adrian Blackwood was already awake when the alarm reached him. Kings learned to rest lightly. Alpha Kings learned to wake before danger had a name. He stood at the balcony of his chamber in a black robe, rain flashing across the mountain glass, when 3 sharp knocks struck his door. "Your Majesty." The guard's voice shook. Adrian turned. "Speak." The door opened. Captain Wells stepped inside, pale beneath his armor. "Selene is gone." The room changed. Not visibly. The fire kept burning. The storm kept breathing against the windows. But every wolf inside Adrian's blood lifted its head. "Gone," Adrian repeated. The word had no softness in it. How does a pregnant royal wolf vanish from a guarded kennel? She broke through the inner gate. "That gate is reinforced with silver ash." "Yes, Your Majesty." Adrian crossed the room before the captain finished. Selene was not merely his wolf. She was royal blood in living form, the last white she-wolf of the Blackwood line, heavy with pups the healers believed might not survive the moonless season. For 5 days, she had refused food. For 3, she had allowed no healer near her belly. She had paced until her paws bled, growling at shadows, at servants, at Adrian himself when he tried to calm her. He had thought it was pain. The healers had called it birth restlessness. Elder Miriam had whispered something older. She is searching. Adrian had dismissed it. A king could not chase superstition every time a wolf dreamed under a dark moon. Now he stood in the shattered kennel doorway, staring at deep claw marks carved through wood and iron. Rain blew in from the broken outer passage. Selene's scent cut through the storm. Sharp, urgent, terrified, determined. Adrian lowered one hand to the splintered frame. His jaw tightened. She did not flee. The captain looked at him. Your Majesty? Adrian stepped over the ruined threshold. She was going somewhere. Within minutes, horses thundered from Blackwood Palace. Adrian rode at the front with no crown, no ceremonial guard, only a black cloak snapping behind him, and Selene's scent burning through his senses like a command he had failed to hear. They crossed flooded roads, pine ridges, abandoned boundary stones. Twice, the trackers lost her trail. Twice, Adrian found it again himself. Not because he was better trained, because something in him had begun to understand that Selene was not running from danger. She was running toward it. Near midnight, the trail bent south, toward Mason Pack. Adrian's mouth hardened. A small pack, proud, political, noisy with ambition. Their alpha, Derek Mason, had sent 3 marriage proposals to Blackwood Court within a year, each one dressed as alliance and smelling of hunger. The storm thinned as they reached the outer fields. Then Adrian heard it. A low growl from the barn beyond the main house. Not wild, not defensive, possessive, protective. His guards dismounted behind him, but Adrian lifted one hand. No one moved. Warm light spilled from the pack house, where music still played. No one inside knew the king had arrived. No one knew the royal wolf they had failed to deserve lay in their barn. Adrian pushed the barn door open. The horses inside stood frozen. Straw scattered across the floor. Rain silvered the gaps in the roof. And there, in the far corner, Selene lay curled around a sleeping girl with mud on her sleeves and rejection still fresh in the air around her. A girl with a soft round face, fair skin, damp brown hair, and one hand resting unconsciously against Selene's pregnant belly. Selene raised her silver eyes to Adrian. Then she growled at her own king. For the first time in Adrian Blackwood's life, his wolf refused to bow. Selene's growl rolled through the barn, low and ancient, filling the rafters with a warning that made every horse tremble in its stall. Adrian stood at the open door with rain dripping from his black cloak, one hand still raised to keep his guards behind him. He did not move closer, not because he feared Selene, because he knew her. She had guarded his cradle, followed him through war camps, slept outside his chamber when poison rumors circled the court. She had bled beside him under the winter moon and never once placed her body between him and another soul, unless that soul mattered more than his command. Now she lay around a rejected girl in a dirty barn, as if the entire Blackwood throne had been built to reach this exact piece of straw. Adrian's eyes moved from Selene to the girl. She was asleep, but not peacefully. Her soft round face was pale with exhaustion. Mud streaked the sleeve of her soaked dress. Brown hair clung to her cheek. One hand rested against Selene's pregnant belly. Fingers curled lightly in sleep, as though even unconscious she was afraid to take up too much space. Rejection still hung in the air. Adrian smelled it before any man could explain it to him. Broken bond. Public shame. Cold pack judgment. Recent. Cruel. His jaw tightened. Who is she? He asked. No one answered. His guards knew better than to guess. Behind him, Captain Wells stepped into the rain and looked toward the glowing pack house. Music drifted from inside, soft and obscene against the silence of the barn. Adrian did not look away from the girl. Selene's ears flattened. Her eyes remained on him. I am not here to harm her, Adrian said quietly. The wolf did not soften. That, more than the growl, unsettled him. Emily stirred. Her lashes fluttered. The moment her hand slipped from Selene's belly, the royal wolf gave a sharp, distressed sound and pressed closer. Emily woke fully then. Fear reached her face before understanding did. She saw the guards first, then the black cloak, then Adrian. Every drop of color left her cheeks. She tried to sit up too quickly. Selene blocked the movement with her massive head, nudging Emily back with strange gentleness. No, Emily whispered, voice rough from cold and sleep. Please, I did not do anything. The words entered Adrian like a blade turned slowly. Not because they accused him, because they had been spoken too many times before. "What is your name?" he asked. Emily swallowed. Her eyes were warm brown, swollen from a night she had not allowed herself to cry through properly. "Emily Carter." "Why are you sleeping in a barn, Emily Carter?" She looked past him toward the pack house. The music had stopped. Someone must have seen the royal horses. The storm seemed to wait with her. "Because there was nowhere else for me." Adrian heard Captain Wells inhale behind him. Selene gave another low growl, not at Emily, but at the doorway. Footsteps splashed through mud outside. Voices. Alarmed. Eager. Too late. Derek Mason appeared first, fastening his coat as if dignity could be dressed in a hurry. Vanessa Moore followed beneath a servant's umbrella, silver silk hidden badly under a fur wrap. They both froze when they saw the Alpha King in their barn. Then they saw Selene. Then Emily. Vanessa's expression changed faster than weather. Shock. Calculation. Disgust. Derek bowed hard. "Your Majesty, we had no idea you were coming." Adrian did not return the greeting. Clearly, Derek's gaze darted to Emily. "This girl has caused some confusion tonight. She is no longer under pack protection." Emily lowered her eyes. Not in guilt. In exhaustion. Adrian saw it. Selene saw it too. The royal wolf rose slightly, heavy with pups, and placed one white paw over the edge of Emily's muddy blanket. A claim. A warning. A judgment older than court law. Vanessa let out a brittle laugh. She must have done something to the wolf. Emily has always been strange. Quiet girls hide strange things. Adrian turned his head slowly. Quiet is not a crime. Vanessa's mouth closed. Derek stepped forward. Selene's snarl hit the barn walls before his boot touched the straw. He stopped. Everyone did. Except Emily. She lifted one trembling hand and rested it against Selene's neck. The wolf calmed instantly. Adrian watched the impossible happen in front of him. His royal wolf, who had refused healers, guards, and king, settled beneath the touch of a girl her own pack had thrown into the mud. For the first time that night, Emily Carter was not the rejected one. The royal wolf had rejected everyone else. Vanessa Moore was the first to call it witchcraft because fear sounded better when dressed as accusation. The word moved through the barn faster than the rain outside. Witchcraft. Guards shifted. Servants gathered near the open door. Derek Mason's face tightened with relief, as if Vanessa had handed him a rope strong enough to pull his shame back onto Emily. Emily felt the change immediately. She had lived long enough beneath suspicious eyes to know when a room wanted one person to blame. Selene's warm body remained beside her, heavy and protective, but Emily still felt cold. Mud clung to her sleeves. Straw pressed into her skirt. Her hair was tangled against her cheeks. She was not standing in silk like Vanessa. She was not wearing pack colors anymore. She looked exactly like the kind of girl people could accuse without feeling cruel. Derek stepped forward carefully, stopping before Selene's growl could rise again. "Your Majesty, this is not what it appears to be." Alpha King Adrian Blackwood did not look at him. His gray-blue eyes stayed on Emily, sharp and unreadable. "Then explain what it appears to be." Derek swallowed. Emily was rejected tonight for valid reasons. Instability. Unusual behavior. A lack of proper discipline. She has always been difficult to place. Emily stared at the straw. Difficult to place. That was a clean way to describe being unwanted in every room she entered. Vanessa moved closer beneath her fur wrap, though not close enough to risk Selene's teeth. She envies women above her. She always has. Perhaps she wanted attention. Perhaps she lured your wolf here to make herself seem important. A soft laugh came from someone near the door. Then another. Small. Nervous. Cruel because it was safer to follow cruelty than stand against it. Emily's fingers curled in the blanket. Selene felt it and pressed her muzzle against Emily's shoulder. The touch was gentle. Too gentle. It nearly broke what the rejection had not. Adrian finally turned to Vanessa. "You believe a rejected girl sleeping in mud commanded the last pregnant royal wolf of Blackwood to break through a guarded palace and run miles through a storm?" Vanessa lifted her chin. "I believe desperation makes low women dangerous." The barn went silent. Even Derek looked at her then, but not because he disagreed. Because she had said too much before a king. Adrian's expression did not change. That made him more frightening. "Low women," he repeated. Vanessa's face paled. "I only mean, I know what you mean." Emily closed her eyes. She did not want this. Not defense. Not attention. not royal anger turning the room toward her as if she were suddenly worth looking at because a powerful man had decided the insult mattered. She had wanted to sleep until morning. She had wanted to leave before anyone could throw her away twice. "Please," she said quietly. Everyone looked at her. She hated that too. Adrian's gaze softened by less than a breath. "Speak." Emily looked at him then. Really looked. He was tall, dark-haired, soaked from rain, carrying authority like something carved into his bones. A king. A stranger. Another man with the power to decide where she belonged. Her voice came thin, but steady. "I did not steal your wolf." Selene's ear flicked. Emily placed one hand on the wolf's neck, feeling the strong pulse beneath white fur. "I did not call her. I did not ask her to come. I was trying to disappear." The words did not echo. They settled. Heavy. Honest. "She came," Emily continued, looking toward Derek now. "To the place where everyone else left me." Derek's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Vanessa's eyes flashed with anger, but Selene rose before she could speak, slow and massive, her swollen belly shifting beneath pale fur. The barn stepped back as one body. Emily did not move. Selene placed herself between Emily and the pack, then lowered her head until her silver eyes fixed on Derek. The message required no language. Adrian saw it. So did everyone else. The royal wolf was not confused. She was not bewitched. She was judging them. Captain Wells murmured from behind Adrian, "Your Majesty, the healers are approaching." Adrian lifted one hand without looking away from Selene. "No one touches the girl." Emily's breath caught. The girl. Not witch. Not rejected. Not useless. Still, protection from a king was dangerous if it became another cage. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself and whispered, "I do not belong to you either." Adrian heard her. Of course he heard her. His eyes returned to her face. And for the first time that night, the Alpha King looked less like a ruler who had found a problem and more like a man who had been corrected by someone lying in straw. "No," he said quietly. "You do not." Selene exhaled and settled back down beside Emily, as if that answer had been the first acceptable command spoken all night. The royal healers arrived carrying silver lamps, leather satchels, and the careful fear of people who knew they were about to touch something sacred. There were 3 of them, all dressed in gray traveling cloaks darkened by rain. Elder Miriam walked in front, her white hair braided down her back, her eyes fixed not on Alpha King Adrian Blackwood, but on Selene. The pregnant royal wolf lifted her head the moment they entered. A warning moved through her chest. Low, deep, final. The healers stopped as one. Emily Carter sat frozen in the straw beside Selene, one hand still buried in the thick white fur at the wolf's neck. She had never seen royal healers before. She had heard stories about them, of course. Everyone had. They served bloodlines, births, curses, wounds that ordinary herbs could not close. They belonged to palaces and old vows, not muddy barns where rejected girls tried to sleep through humiliation. Elder Miriam bowed to Adrian. Your Majesty. Adrian did not look away from Selene. She has not let anyone examine her for days. I know. Miriam's gaze shifted to Emily. Not cruelly. Not with Vanessa's disgust or Derek's suspicion. With attention. That was almost worse. Emily pulled the blanket higher around herself. Selene growled. Not at Emily. At the motion of hiding. As if the wolf disliked seeing her shrink. Miriam took one slow step forward. Selene's lips lifted. The barn went still. Adrian's voice cut softly through the tension. Do not force her. Miriam nodded. I do not intend to. She crouched several feet away and opened her satchel. The smell of herbs, clean cloth, and moon oil filled the air. Selene's ears flattened. One healer reached for a silver listening horn. Selene snarled so sharply the man dropped it into the straw. Vanessa made a faint sound of satisfaction near the doorway. You see? The wolf is unstable. Adrian turned his head slightly. Be quiet. Vanessa went pale. Emily lowered her eyes, but inside her chest, something small and tired recognized the sound of someone else finally being stopped. Miriam studied Selene for a long moment. Then she looked at Emily. Has she allowed you near her belly? Emily's fingers tightened. I did not mean to touch her. That was not what I asked. Emily swallowed. Selene pressed her side closer, warm and heavy against her hip. Yes. A murmur moved through the barn. Derek's jaw clenched. Vanessa looked furious enough to forget fear. Miriam's expression changed, but only slightly. Then touch her now. Emily stared at her. No, the word left her before she could soften it. Everyone paused. Emily's face warmed, but she did not take it back. I am not going to perform for them. Selene gave a soft huff, almost approving. Adrian looked at Emily then, and something like respect entered his eyes. Not pity, not possession, respect. No one here will command your hands, he said. Miriam bowed her head once. Then I will ask. Emily Carter, will you place your hand where Selene allows, so I may know whether the pups are in distress? The difference was thin. It was also everything. Emily looked at Selene. The wolf's silver eyes were fixed on her, calm now, waiting. Not demanding, waiting. Slowly, Emily loosened the blanket from her fingers and placed her palm against Selene's swollen belly. The world held its breath. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then warmth rose beneath Emily's hand. Not fever, not ordinary life. A soft silver glow spread through Selene's fur, gentle as moonlight through water. Emily gasped and tried to pull away, but Selene covered her wrist with one great paw, careful not to hurt her. Inside the wolf's belly, the pups moved. The healers froze. Miriam's eyes filled with stunned recognition. The silver light brightened around Emily's hand, then traveled faintly up her muddy sleeve, revealing the edge of something hidden beneath the dirt on her wrist. A crescent mark. Old, pale, waiting. Derek whispered, "That is impossible." Emily looked down, confused and afraid. "What is that?" No one answered at first. Even Adrian seemed unable to speak. The royal wolf lowered her massive head into Emily's lap and closed her eyes for the first time all night, completely calm under the rejected girl's touch. Elder Miriam sank to one knee in the straw. Not before Adrian. Before Emily. Her voice was barely above a whisper. The pups were not calling for a healer. Emily's breath shook. Miriam looked at the glowing mark on her wrist. They were calling for blood, they remembered. The mark under Emily Carter's mud did not glow like decoration. It woke like something that had been buried alive. Silver light seeped around the crescent on her wrist, thin at first, then brighter where the rain dirt cracked against her skin. Emily stared at it, as if the wrist belonged to another woman. A better woman. A woman born for clean rooms, moonlit vows, royal names whispered with reverence. Not a rejected girl sitting in barn straw with a torn blanket around her shoulders. Elder Miriam remained on one knee before her, face pale with recognition. No one in the barn moved. Not Derek. Not Vanessa. Not the guards. Even Alpha King Adrian Blackwood stood utterly still, his gray-blue eyes fixed on the mark with the kind of silence that made power look helpless. Emily tried to pull her hand back. Selene would not let her. The pregnant wolf only shifted her paw gently over Emily's wrist, holding her there without force, as if the wolf knew Emily's first instinct would be to hide what everyone had mocked her for never having. "What blood?" Emily whispered. Her voice sounded too small for the room. Miriam looked up slowly. Moon nurse blood. A sharp breath moved through the healers behind her. Vanessa let out a thin laugh. "That is absurd." No one listened to her. That frightened Vanessa more than being contradicted would have. Miriam's eyes did not leave Emily. Centuries ago, before royal birthing chambers were guarded by silver wards and court physicians, the old Luna lines were protected by moon nurses. Women who could calm unborn heirs, steady wolf blood, and keep royal pups from turning against the womb during cursed seasons. Emily's mouth went dry. "I am not royal." "No," Miriam said softly. "You are older than royal." The barn seemed to tilt around her. Emily looked to Derek because some foolish part of pain still searched familiar faces for denial, explanation, anything that made the world simple again. Derek's expression was not confused. It was afraid. Adrian saw that. His gaze sharpened. "You knew?" Derek stiffened. "Your Majesty, I knew nothing of this nonsense." Selene growled. The lie shook in the air like a weak branch in wind. Adrian took one step toward him. Derek stepped back before remembering he was an alpha in front of his own pack. "Careful," Adrian said. The word was quiet. It carried more danger than shouting. Elder Miriam reached gently toward Emily's wrist, then paused. "May I?" Emily blinked. No one had asked before touching her injuries, her future, her place in the pack. Not tonight. Not ever. Slowly, she nodded. Miriam wiped the mud away with the edge of a clean cloth. More of the crescent appeared, joined by 3 faint silver lines like roots beneath the skin. Miriam's breath caught. This was sealed. Emily looked at her. What does that mean? Miriam's voice lowered. Someone hid it. Long ago. Probably when you were a child. Vanessa snapped. Or she painted it there. Miriam turned to her at last, and the old healer's gentleness vanished. Paint does not answer royal pups. Inside Selene's belly, the unborn pups moved again, soft silver pulses under Emily's palm. The light filled the straw, reflected in puddles, touched the torn hem of Emily's dress until the barn no longer looked like a place for discarded things. Adrian looked from the glowing mark to Emily's face, and something changed in him. Not desire. Not claim. Shame. Clean, immediate shame. He had walked in expecting a problem with his wolf. He had found a girl everyone had thrown away because they did not know what sacred looked like when it was muddy, tired, and unwanted. Emily saw the change and pulled her hand close to her chest the moment Selene allowed it. Do not look at me like that, she said. Adrian's voice softened. Like what? Like I became valuable. The words struck the barn silent. Emily rose slowly, the blanket slipping from one shoulder, her round face pale but steady. I was lying here before the mark glowed. I was cold before the pups moved. I was a person before your healers had a name for my blood. Adrian bowed his head once. Not deeply. Not theatrically. Enough. You were. Derek made a rough sound. She is still part of my pack. Selene's snarl answered first. Then Adrian looked at him. No. You rejected her before witnesses. Derek's face drained. That was before we understood. Exactly, Adrian said. You only regret what she became, not what you did. Emily closed her eyes for one breath. When she opened them, the mark had faded beneath her skin, but the warmth remained. Miriam stood carefully. Your Majesty, Selene cannot be moved without her. Emily's heart tightened. There it was. Need. Another chain dressed in softer language. Adrian heard it too. He looked at Emily, then at the royal cloak hanging from his shoulders. Slowly, he removed it and laid it on the straw between them. Not over her. Not around her. Between them. Then I will ask, he said. Not order. Emily stared at the cloak. Behind it, Selene watched her with silver eyes, calm and certain. Adrian's voice was low. Will you come with us to Blackwood Palace, Emily Carter? Not as property. Not as a prisoner. Not because they rejected you. Only if you choose the road yourself. For the first time all night, the barn waited for Emily instead of deciding for her. Emily Carter did not answer immediately. That was the first power she had ever been given in Mason Pack. The right to make an entire room wait. Not because she was beautiful enough to be chosen like Vanessa. Not because she carried a title men wanted to use. Not because fear had made people cautious around her. But because for the first time, someone had asked instead of taking. She looked at the royal cloak lying in the straw between herself and Alpha King Adrian Blackwood. Blackwool, silver clasp, warm from his body. A thing that could have meant protection. A thing that could have become ownership if placed in the wrong hands. Emily's fingers curled at her sides. Selene breathed slowly behind her, the pregnant wolf's body heavy and calm, as if the decision had already been made somewhere deeper than speech. But Emily had spent too many years having her life explained by others. Strange, soft, difficult, unfit, rejected. She would not let even a sacred wolf decide for her without being heard. I need to know why they were afraid, she said. Her voice was quiet. The barn listened anyway. Adrian's gaze shifted to Derek. Derek looked away too quickly. That was answer enough. Vanessa stepped forward. No one was afraid of her. Emily is making herself sound important because a mark glowed in the mud. Emily did not look at her. That seemed to anger Vanessa more than any insult could have. Elder Miriam rose fully from the straw, her face grave. Who was her mother? No one spoke. Rain tapped through a crack in the roof. Somewhere in the barn, a horse shifted and stilled again. Emily's throat tightened. Her name was Anna Carter. Derek's jaw moved once. Miriam noticed. So did Adrian. Emily looked at Derek then. What? Derek forced a laugh. Your mother was a servant healer. Nothing more. Then why did your father burn her records? The question did not come from Emily. It came from an old woman standing near the barn door. Clara Wells, one of Mason Pack's kitchen servants, had a wool shawl pulled over her gray hair and fear written across every line of her face. She looked as though she had followed the crowd intending to stay silent and failed at the last moment. Derek turned on her. Go back inside. Clara Wells flinched. Then she looked at Emily and did not go. Emily could barely breathe. What records? The old servant's eyes filled. Your mother kept birthing ledgers, healing notes, moon charts, names of women she saved, names of pups she carried through fever. Derek's father took them after she died. Derek snapped. Enough. Adrian's voice cut through his like ice. Let her speak. Clara Wells swallowed. Anna Carter was not weak. She was the reason half this pack survived the Red Winter. But people feared what they could not command. She could calm wolf blood with her hands. She could hear unborn pups before healers could. When she refused to bind herself to the old Alpha's orders, they called her unstable. Emily stared at the servant. Every word entered her slowly, painfully, as if the past had been locked behind a door and someone had finally turned the key. My mother died of fever, she whispered. Clara Wells lowered her head. No, child. She died after healing too many people who later pretended they had never needed her. The barn became unbearable. Emily saw herself at 6 years old, standing outside the healer's room while adults whispered. Saw Derek's mother washing a silver bowl too long. Saw old scars on her mother's palms she had never understood. Saw the way pack elders always went quiet whenever Emily asked why there were no portraits, no letters, no stories. They had not forgotten Anna Carter. They had erased her. Because a woman who could save bloodlines but would not obey them was dangerous. Emily looked down at her own wrist. The crescent mark had faded, but she could still feel it beneath the skin. Not a decoration. A history. Derek's voice hardened. This changes nothing. Her mother was trouble. Emily has the same blood. Do you think Blackwood Palace will be safer with her inside it? Selene rose. Slowly. The barn darkened around the movement. Adrian did not need the wolf to answer for him. No, he said. I think Mason Pack became comfortable calling power trouble when it belonged to women it could not own. Derek's face flushed. Vanessa looked suddenly less certain. Emily laughed once. Softly. Brokenly. Not because anything was funny. Because all her life, they had called her too soft to matter. Too gentle to lead. Too round. Too plain. Too quiet. Too easy to move aside. But they had not rejected weakness. They had rejected memory. Her mother's. Hers. Theirs. Emily stepped over the royal cloak without picking it up. Adrian's eyes followed her, but he did not move. She stopped in front of Derek Mason, the man who had broken their bond before witnesses and left her in a barn like discarded bedding. You said I was not fit to stand beside you, she said. Derek's mouth tightened. Emily. No, the word was calm. Final. You were right. A ripple moved through the room. Emily lifted her chin. I was never meant to stand beside someone who needed me small to feel like an alpha. Derek went still. Selene came to stand at Emily's side, her silver eyes fixed on the pack that had thrown away both a mother and a daughter. Emily turned back to Adrian. The cloak still lay between them. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she bent, picked it up herself, and wrapped it around her shoulders. Not because he had given it, because she had chosen to take warmth where it was offered without kneeling for it. I will come to Blackwood Palace, she said. For Selene, for the pups, and for the truth about my mother. Adrian bowed his head. Then the road is yours. Behind Emily, Mason Pack stood silent. For the first time, she left a room before anyone could send her away. Emily Carter walked out of the barn with the royal cloak around her shoulders and the pregnant white wolf at her side. No one stopped her. That was the strangest part. All her life, Mason Pack had corrected the way she stood, spoke, ate, healed, breathed. They had moved her from rooms with a look, lowered her with a laugh, sent her away with words sharp enough to sound like law. But now the pack stood in the mud and said nothing as she passed. Derek Mason looked as if he wanted to claim authority and could not remember where he had dropped it. Vanessa Moore held her fur wrap, closed with white fingers, her face pale beneath the porch lanterns. Emily did not look at either of them for long, not because they did not deserve it, because she finally understood that looking back was how unwanted places kept borrowing pieces of you. Selene moved slowly beside her, heavy with royal pups, her silver eyes calm now that Emily was close. Every few steps, the wolf's shoulder brushed Emily's hip, not pushing, not guiding, only reminding her that she was not walking alone. Alpha King Adrian Blackwood followed several paces behind. Not beside her, not ahead of her. Behind. The position unsettled the entire yard. Kings did not walk behind rejected girls. Alpha Kings did not let muddy women in torn dresses lead the way while guards watched in silence. But Adrian did not correct the image. When they reached the royal horses, Captain Wells stepped forward with a saddle cloak and lowered his gaze. "Your Majesty, the carriage can be brought." Emily stopped. Her fingers tightened around the black wool at her shoulders. A carriage meant doors. Doors meant being placed inside something and carried away before she could change her mind. Adrian saw the small movement. "No carriage unless you ask for one," he said. Emily looked at him. Rain clung to his dark hair. His face was cold in the lantern light, but his voice was not. "Selene cannot run far," Elder Miriam warned softly. "She is calmer now, but the pups are still close to distress." Emily looked down at the wolf. Selene leaned against her leg, breathing slow and warm. "Then we walk until she needs to stop," Emily said. No one moved. It was not the answer a king's party expected. Adrian only nodded. "Then we walk." Derek made a sharp sound behind them. "You cannot let her decide the pace of a royal escort." Adrian turned at last. His gray-blue eyes settled on Derek with quiet finality. "I can. I should have learned sooner that men who rush frightened women usually have something to hide." Derek's face hardened, but he did not answer. Emily began walking again before the silence could become another stage. The road from Mason Pack curved through wet fields and dark pine. Dawn had not come yet. The world was still gray, soaked, unfinished. Guards spread far enough to protect without crowding her. Elder Miriam walked near Selene, watching the wolf's breathing but never touching without permission. Adrian remained behind Emily, close enough that danger could not reach her first, far enough that she did not feel hunted. That distance mattered, more than any apology could have. After a while, Emily said without turning, "You are used to being obeyed." Adrian's answer came after a pause. "Yes." "Then this will be difficult for you." Another pause. "Yes." She almost smiled. "Almost. I will not be grateful for a prettier cage. I am not offering one. Palaces are cages when women are brought there because they are needed." His footsteps slowed behind her. "Then I will make sure every door remains open." Emily looked ahead at the road shining with rain. Doors are easy to open. People are harder. Selene gave a soft breath, as if agreeing. Adrian said nothing for several steps. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower. "Then I will begin with the doors and learn the rest from you, if you choose to teach it." Emily did turn then. Just once. The Alpha King stood in the gray road, crownless beneath the storm, a powerful man trying not to turn his regret into command. She did not trust him. Not yet. But she believed he was listening. For that night, it was enough to keep walking. Blackwood Palace did not look like a place that asked permission. It rose from the northern cliffs before dawn, all black stone, silver windows, and towers sharp enough to cut the pale morning sky. Emily Carter stopped at the outer bridge with Selene pressed against her side and understood why lesser packs whispered the king's name instead of speaking it plainly. This was not a house. It was a warning built from rock. Guards lined the entrance as the royal party returned. Servants stood behind them with lanterns. Healers waited with folded blankets and silver bowls. Every face turned first to Selene, then to Emily. She felt the old instinct rise in her body. "Lower your eyes. Step aside. Make yourself smaller before important people decide you are in the way." Her fingers tightened around Adrian's cloak. Selene felt it and leaned closer, heavy and warm, her pregnant belly brushing Emily's hip. The wolf's message was simple. Stay standing. So Emily did. Adrian dismounted behind her, then walked forward only until he reached her shoulder. Not ahead, not claiming the return as his victory. Captain Wells bowed. "Your Majesty, the birthing chamber is prepared. The healers can take Selene at once." Selene growled. Not loudly. She did not need to. The bridge went silent. Emily looked down at the wolf. "You do not want that room." Selene's silver eyes lifted to hers. The answer was in the weight of her body, the refusal in her stillness. Elder Miriam exhaled softly. "She will not enter without Miss Carter." A murmur passed through the servants. Miss Carter. Not rejected girl. Not witch. Not Mason's cast-off. Emily almost did not recognize herself under the name. One of the younger healers stepped forward too quickly. Then the girl should be brought to the birthing chamber and kept close until the pups stabilize. Kept. The word struck Emily harder than the cold wind. She took one step back. Selene moved with her. Adrian turned to the healer. No, the healer froze. Your Majesty? She will not be kept anywhere. The bridge seemed to hold its breath. Adrian looked at Emily, not the court. There is a guest chamber beside the old moon room. It has 2 doors, one to the hall, one to the garden. Both will remain unlocked. Selene may enter if she chooses. Emily may leave if she chooses. Emily studied his face. There was power there. Of course there was. But he was holding it still, as if power had finally learned shame. And if I choose not to heal anything tonight? She asked. A few servants looked horrified. Elder Miriam only watched. Adrian answered without hesitation. Then you sleep. Emily's throat tightened. Not because the answer was beautiful, because it was ordinary. An ordinary kindness felt impossible after a night spent being treated like a tool everyone had suddenly discovered was valuable. Selene stepped onto the bridge first. Emily followed. The guards bowed as she passed. Some bowed to Selene, some to Adrian. But one old servant near the door bowed to Emily herself, slow and deep, with tears shining in her eyes. Emily did not know what to do with that kind of respect, so she simply kept walking. The guest chamber was warm, plain, and larger than any room she had ever slept in. A fire burned low. Clean water waited on the table. A soft gown had been folded on the bed, but no one tried to undress her, touch her wrist, or examine the fading crescent mark beneath her skin. Selene circled once, then lowered herself on the rug before the hearth with a tired sigh. Emily sank to the edge of the bed, still wearing the muddy dress and royal cloak. Adrian remained outside the open doorway. He did not cross the threshold. You should rest, he said. Emily looked at him. People keep saying that after deciding what they need from me. He accepted the wound in the words. Then I will say something else. There will be food outside your door. Miriam will come only if you ask. No one from Mason Pack will enter Blackwood lands without your permission. Her eyes lowered to the cloak around her shoulders. And you? I will be where Selene can call me, and where you do not have to see me unless you choose to. For a long moment, Emily said nothing. The girl who had slept in a barn wanted to distrust every soft word. The daughter of Anna Carter wanted answers. The new, frightened thing beneath her skin wanted to believe that being needed did not always have to become being owned. Alpha King, she said quietly. Adrian's expression changed at the title, but he did not correct her. I came for Selene, the pups, and the truth about my mother. Not for a crown. Not for a bond. Not for you. He bowed his head. I understand. Emily looked toward Selene, already half asleep near the fire, refusing even in dreams to leave her side. Then she looked back at Adrian. I will stay tonight. His breath shifted, barely. Relief, controlled before it could become pressure. Thank you. Emily shook her head. Do not thank me for staying somewhere. I am still deciding whether I am safe. Adrian went still, then nodded once. Then I will earn the next morning. He stepped back from the doorway and left it open behind him. Emily sat in the warm room, listening to the fire, the quiet palace, the royal wolf breathing at her feet. For the first time since her rejection, no one was pushing her out. For the first time since the mark woke beneath the mud, no one was dragging her in. She was simply there, unclaimed, unowned, awake. And beside her, the pregnant royal wolf slept peacefully, as if the kingdom's future had chosen its guardian before the kingdom had learned her name. Emily Carter woke to the sound of a wolf breathing beside her bed and did not know, for one confused moment, why the room was warm. There was no straw beneath her, no rain falling through broken boards, no laughter from a pack house where people had decided her humiliation was entertainment. Only firelight, clean blankets, and Selene stretched across the rug with her pregnant belly rising and falling in slow, peaceful waves. Emily lay still. Safety, she had learned, could frighten the body when it arrived without warning. Her hand moved to her wrist. The crescent mark was quiet beneath her skin, almost invisible again, but not gone. Nothing that had happened in the barn was gone. Derek's voice, Vanessa's smile, the royal cloak, Adrian Blackwood standing on the bridge and saying she would not be kept anywhere. Emily closed her eyes. Words were easy at doorways, harder to live by once the doors belonged to a palace. A soft knock came from the hall. Not forceful, not impatient. Emily sat up slowly. Selene opened one silver eye, but did not growl. Who is it? Emily asked. Miriam. The old healer's voice came through the door. I brought breakfast. And answers, if you want them. If you want them. Emily breathed once, then said, "You may come in." Elder Miriam entered alone, carrying a wooden tray. Bread, honey, berries, tea, and a bowl of warm milk for Selene. No guards followed. No attendants. No hands reached for Emily's wrist. Miriam set the tray on the small table and stepped back. His Majesty ordered no one to enter unless you gave permission. Emily looked at the door. Ordered. Miriam's mouth softened. Requested with the expression of a man learning that ordering is not always useful. Emily did not smile, but something in her chest loosened by half a thread. Selene rose heavily and nosed the bowl of milk. Miriam watched her with visible relief. She slept 6 hours. First real rest in nearly a week. Emily looked at the wolf. Why me? The question left her before she could hide it behind something calmer. Miriam folded her hands. Because your blood remembers what ours forgot. From beneath her cloak, the healer removed a leather-bound journal. Old, water-stained, tied with faded blue thread. Emily's breath caught before she understood why. This was found in the lower archive after dawn, Miriam said. It was filed under abandoned birth records. Your mother's name is inside. The room went silent. Even the fire seemed to lean closer. Emily did not reach for it immediately. Some truths looked like gifts until they opened their mouths. Read it, she whispered. Miriam opened the journal carefully. Anna Carter. Moon nurse line, unregistered by choice. Called to Blackwood Palace during the Silver Fever winter. Assisted 3 royal births. Stabilized wolf blood in 2 unborn heirs. Refused permanent court binding. Emily's throat tightened. Permanent binding? Miriam's gaze darkened. A contract that would have placed her healing under royal command. And she refused. Yes. Emily looked toward the open garden door. Morning light spilled across the stone threshold, gentle and cold. Is that why she won a Mason pack? Miriam hesitated. Possibly. Or she was sent away after refusing men who thought gratitude should become obedience. A shadow moved beyond the hall. Emily looked up. Adrian stood outside the doorway, not crossing it, one hand resting against the stone frame. He must have heard enough. His face had no crown in it now. Only shame held carefully so it would not ask to be comforted. Was Blackwood part of it? Emily asked. Adrian did not hide from the question. Yes. The answer landed softly and still struck hard. Miriam closed the journal. Emily's fingers curled in the blanket. Your family tried to own my mother. Adrian's jaw tightened. My grandfather did. My father hid the records. I inherited the silence. And now you need me. Yes. The honesty hurt. It also did not insult her. Adrian looked at Selene, then back at Emily. But need is not a right. Not anymore. Emily studied him across the open doorway. Powerful. Controlled. Waiting outside a room, he could have entered with one command. What happens if I say no? She asked. Miriam's face tightened with fear. Selene lifted her head. Adrian's answer came slowly. Then we find another way to protect Selene. A worse way, maybe. A less certain way. But not by turning you into what your mother refused to become. Emily looked down at her wrist. The crescent mark stirred faintly, not glowing, only warm, as if it had heard her mother's name and woken in grief. She reached for the journal then. Miriam placed it in her hands. The first page smelled of dust, ink, and something lost too long in darkness. Emily traced Anna Carter's name with one finger. For the first time, her mother was not a whisper, not a missing portrait, not a woman Mason Pack had buried under silence. She was ink. Proof. History. Selene stood with effort and crossed to Emily, resting her great head beside the journal. Emily touched the wolf's fur with her free hand. I will help her, she said quietly. Adrian's shoulders shifted with relief, but he did not speak over it. Emily lifted her eyes to him. But after the pups are safe, I want every record about my mother brought into the light. Blackwood records. Mason records. All of it. Adrian bowed his head. Done. Not done. Emily corrected softly. Begun. And this time, when the Alpha King nodded, the word belonged to her. The old moon room had not been opened in 27 years. Emily Carter stood before its silver doors with Anna Carter's journal held against her chest, and Selene pressed heavily at her side. The hallway behind them was full of people trying not to look frightened. Healers. Guards. 2 record keepers from the lower archive. Elder Miriam with moon oil on her hands. Alpha King Adrian Blackwood stood near the wall, close enough to answer danger, far enough not to become another kind of pressure. Emily noticed that distance. She noticed everything now. Once, she had survived by reading faces before they turned cruel. Now she was learning to read restraint. It was quieter, harder to trust. This room belonged to the moon nurses, Miriam said. Before the bindings. Bindings. Emily hated how softly everyone spoke that word, as if naming old chains politely made them less heavy. She looked at the carved doors. Moon phases curved across the silver panels. Beneath them were small handprints pressed into the metal, some large, some delicate, some faded by years of neglect. Women had stood here before her. Women who had touched royal bloodlines and then been thanked with rules. Why was it sealed? Emily asked. No one answered quickly enough. Adrian did. Because my family preferred healers who could be commanded. The truth moved through the hallway like cold air. Some of the older servants lowered their eyes. Miriam's mouth tightened. Emily looked at Adrian. There was no defense in his face. No request for her to soften what he had admitted. That did not erase anything. But it made the ground beneath the next step less rotten. Open it, she said. The doors did not respond to the guards. They did not respond to Miriam's key. They did not respond to Adrian's blood when he cut one thumb and pressed it to the crest. Selene growled softly, impatient. Then Emily placed her marked wrist against the smallest handprint near the bottom of the door. The crescent beneath her skin warmed. Silver light spread through the carvings, slow as breath returning to a body left too long in darkness. The doors opened inward without a sound. The room beyond was not grand. That surprised her. No throne, no royal bed, no jeweled cradle waiting beneath banners. Only a circular chamber of pale stone, low cushions, shelves of old herbs, bowls of clear water, and windows open to the gray morning sky. It felt less like a palace room than a place where women had once been allowed to work without being watched by men who wanted ownership over miracles. Selene stepped inside first, then stopped and looked back at Emily. Waiting. Emily followed. The wolf crossed to the center of the room and lowered herself carefully onto the layered blankets. Her breathing changed almost at once. Shorter, rougher. The pups moved beneath her side in uneven silver pulses. Miriam knelt nearby, but did not touch. Emily, she said gently. She is entering birth distress. Fear climbed Emily's throat. I do not know how to do this. Your mother wrote that moon nurse blood does not command life, Miriam said. It listens until life remembers where to go. Emily almost laughed because it sounded useless and holy at the same time. Then Selene whined. Not a royal sound. Not powerful. A mother's sound. Emily dropped to her knees beside her. All the watching faces blurred. The room narrowed to white fur, silver eyes, and the trembling heat beneath her palm. I am here, Emily whispered, though she did not know whether she spoke to Selene, the pups, her mother, or the frightened girl still curled in the barn inside her own memory. The crescent mark lit beneath her skin. The room answered. Water in the bowls trembled. Old herbs stirred without wind. Across the walls, the handprints of dead moon nurses glowed one by one, not bright, not dramatic, only present. Emily felt a warmth behind her, steady but not touching. Adrian had come no farther than the doorway. His hands were clenched at his sides. His face was pale with helplessness. For once, he did not look like a king waiting to be obeyed. He looked like a man praying not to repeat the sins that had brought them here. Selene's breathing hitched. The silver pulses beneath Emily's hand scattered wildly. Miriam's voice sharpened. They are turning against the contraction. Emily shut her eyes. She thought of Anna Carter's name in ink, of records burned, of women erased after saving people who feared them, of Derek calling her unfit, of Vanessa laughing by the barn, of Adrian laying his cloak down instead of around her. Not perfect, not forgiven, but different. Emily pressed both hands gently to Selene's side. No one owns this blood, she whispered. Not Mason, not Blackwood, not fear. The crescent flared. Selene's body relaxed beneath her palms. One silver pulse steadied, then another, then three. Miriam inhaled sharply. It is working. Emily opened her eyes. Tears blurred the pale room, but she did not wipe them away. For the first time, crying did not feel like defeat. It felt like something frozen finally leaving her body. Outside the moon room, footsteps rushed down the corridor. Captain Wells appeared at the doorway, expression hard. Your Majesty. Adrian did not move from his place. Not now. Mason Pack has arrived at the outer gate. Emily's hands remained on Selene. The wolf growled weakly, protective even through pain. Captain Wells looked at Emily, then back to Adrian. Derek Mason says Emily Carter belongs to his pack by bloodline record and must be returned for questioning. The room went colder. Emily looked up slowly. Adrian's eyes met hers, not with command, not with claim, but with a question. Emily understood it. She gave him the only answer that mattered. Let them wait. Emily Carter kept both hands on Selene's side, while Mason Pack waited at the outer gate. That was the first thing they did not control. Not her fear, not her blood, not her body, not the timing of a woman they had once thrown into a barn. The old moon room held its breath around her. Silver light moved beneath Selene's fur in soft, uneven waves. The pregnant wolf whined once, low and exhausted, then pressed her muzzle against Emily's knee as if reminding her where the real danger lay. Not at the gate. Here, in the fragile place between pain and birth. Emily bent closer. I am not leaving you. Selene's silver eyes closed. Elder Miriam knelt opposite Emily, hands hovering near the wolf's belly, waiting for permission from the girl everyone had called useless. The pulses are steadying, she said softly. But the pups are not safe yet. Then no one enters, Emily said. Her voice was quiet. It carried anyway. Adrian Blackwood turned toward Captain Wells. Seal the inner corridor. Mason Pack stays beyond the outer gate. Captain Wells bowed. And if Derek Mason demands royal audience? Adrian's eyes moved once to Emily, not asking her to handle it, asking whether his answer would become another chain around her. Emily did not look away from Selene. Tell him the woman he rejected is busy keeping royal blood alive. Silence. Then Adrian said, use those exact words. Captain Wells left. For one breath, Emily almost smiled. Almost. Then Selene's body tightened beneath her palms, and the room narrowed again to white fur, trembling breath, and the crescent mark burning under Emily's skin. The next hour became something outside ordinary time. Emily did not know the old prayers. She did not know royal birthing rites or moon nurse chants. Miriam guided her in fragments, never commanding, only offering. Breathe with her. Wait for the pulse. Do not push the magic. Let it answer. Emily listened. For once, listening did not mean shrinking. It meant leading gently. When Selene's pain rose, Emily pressed her palm to the place where the silver light scattered and whispered, come back. Slowly. You are safe. When the unborn pups twisted against the contraction, she felt them like sparks beneath water, frightened and bright. She did not force them. She called to them the way no one had ever called to her. Not with ownership. With welcome. One by one, the pulses steadied. Miriam's eyes shone. Emily. The first pup came just before noon. Small. Wet. Breathing. Silver white. Selene lifted her head with a sound so soft it broke something open in Emily's chest. The second followed minutes later, darker along the ears, tiny paws flexing against the blanket. The third took longer. Too long. Selene shuddered, and the light on Emily's wrist flared so sharply Adrian stepped forward without thinking. Then stopped. Emily felt him stop. That mattered. She looked down at Selene and placed both hands against the wolf's side. No, she whispered, not to the pup, not to death, but to every old story that said women like her could only save others by losing themselves. The crescent mark blazed silver. The handprints on the moon room walls answered. And the third pup slid into Miriam's waiting cloth with a thin, furious cry. Alive. The sound moved through the room like sunrise. Miriam bowed her head over the pup. One healer covered her mouth. Even the guards at the door turned away as if emotion were something too private to witness. Emily sat back on her heels. Her whole body shook. Selene licked the pups close, then rested her great head in Emily's lap. Not command. Gratitude. Adrian stood at the doorway, pale and silent. His eyes were on the pups first, then Selene, then Emily. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost every trace of royal polish. You saved them. Emily looked at him, exhausted. No, she said. I helped them live. He accepted the correction like a vow. Before anything else could be said, the corridor filled with hard footsteps. Captain Wells returned, jaw tight. Your Majesty. Derek Mason refuses to leave. He says Emily Carter's bloodline was registered under Mason protection and that Blackwood has no right to keep her. Emily laughed. It was small, dry, almost unfamiliar. Selene's head lifted. A growl moved through the room, deeper now, joined by something impossible. 3 tiny answering sounds. The pups, even newborn, even blind, they reacted to the threat at the gate. Miriam looked stunned. Adrian looked at Emily. Do you want him removed? A simple question. A dangerous gift. Emily slowly stood. Her dress was wrinkled, muddy at the hem, marked with silver light and birth water. Her hair had fallen loose around her soft, round face. She did not look like a queen. She did not look like a rejected girl either. She looked like a woman who had finally met the truth of her own blood and found it standing. No, she said. I want him brought to the outer hall. Adrian's expression sharpened. Emily. He wanted to question me, she said. Let him hear my answer where everyone can witness it. Selene tried to rise. Emily touched her head gently. Stay with your pups. The wolf obeyed. That silence said more than any throne could have. When Emily walked into the outer hall, the court turned. Derek Mason stood near the entrance with Vanessa beside him, both dressed in dry formal clothes as if presentation could erase memory. Behind them stood 2 Mason elders carrying old bloodline scrolls. Derek's eyes dropped to Emily's stained dress, then to her wrist, then, finally, to her face. You belong to Mason Pack by record, he said. Emily stopped several steps away. Adrian stood behind her, not beside her, letting the room see the difference. No, Emily said. I belonged to Mason Pack until you rejected me before witnesses. That was a bond matter. You sent me to sleep in a barn. Derek's mouth tightened. Emily's voice did not rise. You do not get to discard a woman when she is inconvenient and reclaim her when her blood becomes useful. Vanessa flushed. You were nothing before that, Mark. Emily looked at her then. Calm, almost gentle. I was my mother's daughter before any of you remembered her name. Elder Miriam stepped forward with Anna Carter's journal in her hands. Blackwood Palace recognizes Anna Carter as Moon Nurse of Royal Service. Her records will be restored. Her daughter is under no pack claim. One Mason elder protested. Adrian's voice cut through the hall. Careful. One word. The protest died. Emily turned to Derek one final time. You were right to reject me, she said. His face shifted, confused by the softness. Then she finished. Not because I was unworthy of your pack. Because your pack was too small to hold what my mother left behind. The hall went silent. Derek had no answer. Vanessa had no laughter. For once, Emily did not wait to be dismissed. She turned away first. Behind her, Adrian did not touch her, did not claim victory, did not speak as if he had given her freedom. He only opened the path back to the moon room, and Emily walked through it on her own feet. By evening, Blackwood Palace had learned to say Emily Carter's name without lowering it first. The change was not loud. That made it stronger. It happened in the way servants stepped aside without pity in their eyes, in the way healers waited before entering the moon room, in the way Captain Wells ordered the Mason records placed under royal review and did not once call them property claims. It happened when Elder Miriam wrote Anna Carter's name on the restored registry in black ink, not hidden beneath a pack seal, not buried under abandoned birth records, but placed where everyone could read it. Anna Carter, Moon Nurse of Royal Service. Mother of Emily Carter. Bloodline unbound. Emily stood beside the table as the ink dried. Her body ached from the long night and the birth. Her dress had been changed into a soft gray gown someone had left outside her door instead of carrying in. Her wrists still glowed faintly beneath her sleeve, not demanding attention, only existing. Selene slept in the old moon room with 3 pups tucked against her belly, each small life breathing steadily because Emily had helped them remember how. For the first time since the barn, Emily felt tired in a way that did not feel like defeat. Adrian Blackwood stood near the archived doorway, crownless again, hands folded behind his back. He had been present for the restoration of the records, but he had not spoken over Miriam. He had not declared Emily protected property of Blackwood. He had not offered her a title in front of witnesses, as if another name could heal the damage done by the last one people had put on her. When the final seal was pressed, Elder Miriam looked at Emily. Your mother is no longer erased. Emily touched the edge of the registry. The paper was ordinary. That almost broke her. All those years of silence, and the first piece of justice was ink drying on a page. Thank you, she whispered. Miriam shook her head. No. Thank you for making us remember what we chose to forget. Later, Emily returned to the moon room alone. Selene lifted her head the moment she entered, silver eyes soft and watchful. The pups stirred blindly against her side. Emily knelt beside them and let one tiny nose press against her palm. Warm, alive, trusting without knowing the cost of trust yet. You chose me before anyone else did, Emily murmured. Selene huffed quietly, as if the answer had always been simple. A knock came at the open door. Emily looked back. Adrian stood outside, not crossing the threshold. May I? He asked. The question still felt unfamiliar, still dangerous in how gently it touched the places that had once been commanded. Emily looked at Selene. The wolf did not growl. You may stand there, Emily said. Adrian accepted the boundary without flinching. Mason Pack has left Blackwood land. Derek, stripped of any claim over your records. His counsel will answer for the burned ledgers. Emily nodded. She had expected satisfaction to feel sharper. Instead, it felt quiet, like setting down a stone she had carried so long it had shaped her hand. Adrian looked at the pups, then at her. The palace will need a moon nurse. Emily's face cooled. He saw it immediately. That was poorly said. She waited. He lowered his head. Blackwood would be honored if you chose to remain. But need is not a chain. If you leave tomorrow, your mother's name stays restored. Your protection remains. Your freedom remains. Nothing you save today will be used to purchase you. Emily studied him across the room. This was the same man who had followed his wolf into a barn and found her in the straw. The same king who could have taken, ordered, claimed. The same man who was learning, slowly and imperfectly, that restraint could be stronger than power. And if I stay? She asked. His voice softened. Then you stay as Emily Carter first. Not as a cure. Not as a debt. Not as someone grateful for being rescued. Selene rested her chin against Emily's knee. The pup slept on. Outside the windows, dawn began to pale the sky beyond Blackwood's sharp towers. Emily thought of the barn, the mud, Vanessa's laughter, Derek's rejection. She thought of her mother's name returned to light. She thought of the road ahead, no longer a place she was being sent, but a place she could choose. Slowly, Emily stood. I will stay until Selene is strong enough to walk without me, she said. Adrian nodded. Of course. After that, I will decide again. Something like respect moved through his eyes. Then Blackwood will wait for your decision. Emily almost smiled. Not because she trusted the palace completely. Not because pain had vanished. But because for the first time, staying did not feel like being trapped. It felt like being allowed to choose the next morning. She turned back to Selene and placed one hand over the wolf's warm head. The rejected girl from the barn was still inside her. Emily would not erase her. She would carry her gently, because that girl had survived the night no one wanted her. And when the royal wolf came looking for what the world had thrown away, Emily Carter had still been there, breathing, unclaimed, and worthy before anyone finally learned to see it.